Hello, and welcome back, everyone. Today we're covering family bonuses. Hooray! Finally! I know. Well, they've been out for some time, and with the recent update, now we can add a fourth and fifth line to each piece as we upgrade our primary gear to levels 21 and 26. Is it worth it to use these bonuses, or should we be handpicking preferred stats? What are the benefits of using each family, and which classes or builds might use them? To be honest, there's way too many builds and game modes to cover each specifically, but the goal of this video is to leave you with some knowledge to make those decisions for yourself. Or as always, you can leave comments in the video and work together as a community. There's a lot of info in this one, so let's begin. Tremor said, your primary attacks have a chance to inflict damage and stun nearby enemies. The damage will increase by 10% for each line after the third on the same piece of gear. And that's true for all bonuses except for the barrier, which increases the amount absorbed by the shield by 10% for each line after the third. For attributes, well, they're mainly PvP oriented, with perhaps some situational use in PvE. Reducing enemy healing isn't really that great at the current moment in the game. Primary attacks reducing attack and movement speed can be handy. That's if you're able to use your primary attack and get it to proc during the chain CC meta that we're in. Reduce continual damage, stun resistance, knockback resistance. Well, these all add some defensive passives, with stun resistance being the strongest of these choices in my opinion. The proc on Tremor is solid for both PvP and certain PvE content. However, just like the attack and move speed slow, you have to actually be able to use your primary attack in PvP, and that's more difficult than it sounds right now. So make sure your build has a way to make use of that if you're choosing this option. Wildfire set. Chance when defeating an enemy to summon a Hydra. The attributes? Well, they're mainly offensive in nature. Increase primary attack, increase skill damage, increase critical hit damage. These are all very good for pretty much any build really. Damage done to enemies below 30% life is actually stronger the more hit points the enemy has, as you'll get more value out of it. Healing party members on death? Well, this stat exists. Keep in mind that the Hydra is stationary, so its benefit is greatly reduced in any content that has you moving long distances. This choice is probably best for things like raids with trash mobs, or even endless defense, where you're able to kill some mobs and have the Hydra remain dealing damage to the primary targets. Barrier set. Chance when attacked to gain an absorption shield. Many defensive stats here, including increased life, reduced damage taken by nearby enemies, and increased block chance, all of which are viable for PvP and PvE. Fear resistance, a solid choice for PvP given the vast number of Necros and BGs. Damage to undead? Well, enough about this one. Note that the barrier set is a chance when attacked, meaning you don't actually have to take damage, increasing its strength when paired with other shield mechanics. Vengeance set. Primary attacks have a chance to increase all damage for 1 second, with strictly offensive attributes, like increased attack speed, increased damage to players, increased damage to enemies suffering loss of control, increased damage to shielded enemies, and increased damage to demons. Increased attack speed, increased damage to players, and increased damage to enemies suffering from loss of control are a popular trio in PvP for builds that can capitalize on the window of opportunity that this family gives. Increased damage to demons and increased damage to shielded enemies is interesting, because there's very limited places where you'd get benefit from both of these simultaneously, and since the bonus for extra lines is 10%, I might opt for other attributes from different families after choosing 3 from this set personally. Ravager set. Chance when defeating an enemy to cause the corpse to explode, damaging all nearby enemies. With a couple of utility options, including reduced healing potion cooldown and life regeneration. However, neither is that great in my opinion. Increased damage to elites would strictly help in PvE, and only against mobs that meet the criteria. Increased damage done by summons, and decreased damage taken by summons may help summoner necros or other oddball builds, but in my experience, if you meet the combat rating for PvE content, summons don't really need any boost, with the exception being when pushing challenge rifts. And in PvP, summon builds aren't all that effective. Overall, seems like a niche build with a niche effect that will never benefit you on a single target encounter. Jolt set. Chance when attacked to immobilize your attacker. Defensive and utility attributes here. Reduced damage taken by players, reduced damage taken while suffering loss of control, and increased chance of cheat death are all good defensives for PvP. Increased duration of beneficial effects is useful in PvP and PvE for many builds, and slow resistance might be the least attractive line here. Again, the proc is when attacked, so this can be paired with shields to increase your survivability. And what's missing from the tooltip is that this proc actually does some damage as well. Recent changes allow multiple lines of the same family to both increase the chance to proc and reduce the internal cooldown. As always, feel free to use the comments for questions about specific classes and builds. Thanks for taking the time to watch, and have a great day.